one thing that I personally don't feel very sure about is the Winchesters.
I know.
This week's episode was better than the mid-season premiere, but for me, not by much, which is a shame because I love vampires and somehow the vampires are boring.
Yeah, I want to preface this section by saying I love this show. I wouldn't be here still if I didn't love the show, and by be here I mean like watching it. Because there's a difference between a show that you love that kind of disappoints you, that you're like, I'm gonna ride this out to the bitter end, and there's a show that you like that disappoints you, and then you're like, I think we need to consciously uncouple. So like I love the show and I will watch every episode, but that doesn't mean I have to like everything that happens or like how they're executing it. Like I feel like this show might be better binged, like in hindsight. Like I feel like I'm gonna re-binge it and be like, oh, this is great. But seeing it week to week with like weeks that are where it doesn't air, it just feels very disjointed sometimes. And it has the energy of like the first season of a show that's on the WB. Like it has the nonchalance of that, where they're just like, we're gonna take our time settling into this world. Whereas like, I don't know if this is a fault to the show or a fault to me as the viewer. I'm kind of like, can we do something faster a little bit, please? Because I don't think in this day and age of television, we have the luxury of just kind of like feeling our way through a first season. Like we need to go. That's my 2 cents.
No, I'm with you on that, and I know where you're coming from. I do think maybe of the three of us, I maybe enjoyed the episode the most, but I think that was just because I was kind of a little disappointed by the one that came before. I think this would have worked as a better mid-season premiere because it just felt a little bit faster than the other one. Still very episodic, like it's fast on an episodic basis, but not very fast as far as the overall story goes. And then that brings up the issue, well, if you enjoyed the villains of the week, where does that leave the overall story? Are we not moving through it quick enough?
We really aren't, though.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It feels like I don't remember what happened with like the Queen and the Okrita, and even the photo of Dean isn't really touched upon, and that John just like looks at it again. As far as I know, that's all that happened, right? He just looks at the picture of Dean.
Yeah, they're just walking on their morning date and they're looking at the picture, and Mary makes some comment about him looking nice or whatever. And then that's the end of the photo. They just go on about their business.
I was like, okay, but like I kind of like what's happening with that? And then the vampires were kind of fun. I like that they were like the Buffy vampires.
Yeah,
they're kind of like, you know, those kinds. But like I don't fully understand the point, and I'm sure Supernatural fans probably ate it up. But like I don't have that history, so just again, it just felt like another episode where one of the two main leads was in mortal danger. And John actually did die.
They took it up a little bit. No, when you say it like that, I know what you mean. We've seen that an awful lot this season. Yeah, I enjoyed the vampires as far as like one-dimensional villains go. Maybe they talk too much because I was like, I don't know. Where are we going with this? And the opening scene was very long. But aside from all of that, it was a solid episode, but it just didn't, for so much happening in the episode, it just didn't feel like it took the overall story anywhere. Maybe that's what I keep giving off about. I think that the issue with the Winchesters is that there is so much happening overall and not enough happening in the episodes, because you have,
that makes total sense.
You know what I mean? You have the Samuel stuff, you have the Dean stuff, you have the Akrita, you have the exes situation, which we'll get into shortly.
Oh, dear Lord.
You have John and Mary. You have the potential of multiverse. You have the potential of prequel. I don't know. There's so much going on for not enough happening in the episodes. Pick on one of those points I just said, and let's talk about
it. I think that's why we need commitment to either it's Monster of the Week or it's a season-long plot. They're trying to do both, and it's not working.
Yeah.
And just a quick question that has nothing to do with anything, but where did Ada go? Did they explain where she was in the past 2 weeks?
No. I feel like maybe they weren't able to have the actress, because when what was it, Lato was like, I need a lore expert, and I was like, excuse me, don't we have Ada?
I was just like, wait, where did she go? And I feel like I haven't seen, she wasn't in the like the behind the scenes Instagram videos that the cast was sharing. So I'm gonna keep an eye on that. But let's get back into the episode.
You could feel her missing from this one though, because this would have been a case that she would have been a part of that would have like added some richness, especially being able to have scenes with Millie again, which I enjoyed Millie in this episode, trying to be a mom who like worrying about her son but trusting him when he makes this decision to kill himself in order to save everybody else, but also being wary of Betty, but still presenting a nice, I'm Millie, you can talk to me about anything, but no, I'm not telling you what my child is up to.
She's quickly becoming the MVP. And I love the fact they had her like joking about reading the lore and everything about it. I never thought a job with so much hunting would involve so much reading. And I'm like, well, this is what Ada was there for. Where is she? She could have helped solve this problem. But yeah, no, I feel like Millie was very important in this episode, just like she was very important in the last one as far as standing up to Samuel goes. I'm really enjoying her scenes maybe the most. Of course, there's the John and Mary stuff as well. But yeah, she really came through for them. And I think the important thing was that she needed to learn to trust John. It was a terrible idea, but I mean, it paid off in the end. But yeah, she because I think Betty had kind of placed those doubts in her mind. This was a big one for Millie to ultimately trust him in the end, and it paid off.
I'm not going to touch the Betty and Kyle thing yet. I want to talk about John and Mary because they had a big relationship development in the previous episode. And then this week, they're fully in it. But Mary's like, I don't know, we should keep it quiet. And it just felt like it felt like a natural progression in the relationship, but it also felt like just a trope in television where like, okay, we got this couple together. What are the stories that we need to tell in the interim of whatever the next step is in the relationship? And it's not always successful. And I feel like it wasn't, I just don't know like what we learned from that as characters or viewers.
I don't think we learned anything because the when they're talking outside of the car while they're holding their coffees, she says she wants to keep it quiet because she doesn't know how the relationship dynamics would change if Lata and Carlos knew that they were. But
meanwhile, it's a small town and they're out in the open, like hugging and kissing, and I'm like,
well, it's that, but it's also like, well, I didn't understand what she meant because, like we've mentioned previously, they've had like 4 near-death experiences with them being very emotionally attached to each other. It's not going to change anything.
They cuddled at Carlos, or that's his name, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you guys ever like say somebody's name and you're like, wait,
yes,
where did that come from? Is that right? But they like cuddled at his performance in the previous episode, and I'm like, and of course when they ended up finding out, they were like, duh, we're not dumb, like we spent every moment with you two. Like we know. So I was like, I don't know who this was for, and I don't know if it was an actual like, was it a learning moment for Mary? Because it
didn't feel like one, right?
Yeah, I don't know if she needed, like, I don't know. It just didn't really land for me. It just felt like a story to tell. But it was cute. I enjoyed them together, so whatever.
Yeah, as far as the tropes of the WB shows goes, that was one of them. But kind of like we would have definitely seen that situation with Clark and Lana on Smallville. But I feel like there would have maybe been an episode or 2 between that after them getting together. It just felt like they went from getting together to suddenly we have to keep this huge secret. And it was just like it was ticking the boxes of the trope. And you're right, it was another near-death experience that made them have that quite emotional moment. And then they turned around and were like, we're together. But like there was no like, you know, the way when that happens, the character has to learn something or choose to do something. She didn't choose to announce it to the world. They just happened to be there when that moment was taking place. Yeah, it just... I know what you mean. It was
like,
nice.
What did it do for her?
Exactly.
Like, did she realize like, oh, I can be honest with people? Like, I don't know what that, not that everything needs to have like a reason or a message, but I mean, you hope that it would. Like, how did Mary grow from that? I don't know if she learned like, oh, I can trust people, or like, oh, I need to, let go of, open myself up to people. I don't know what that story did besides just like, and it didn't even last that long. Like,
no, and they weren't really hiding. Like it's not like she she touched, with exception to the kitchen, she touched him the same amount that she always touches him in the show. It's not like we started the series with the two of them only having private moments alone where she's very vulnerable, but when she's in front of Carlos and Lata, she's headstrong, and she won't let him be there for her emotionally. She lets him be there for her emotionally in front of her friends all the time. So like, it's not like besides the kissing, what exactly were you hiding?
Well, then maybe this will be just like a subtle push of her being more vulnerable instead of putting up this like tough exterior, but it didn't really allude to that very much. So I don't know if that was the intention or if that's just I'm trying to, give it some meaning.
And I think the episode definitely wanted the characters to feel the trope of the moment, and it came across, like, for example, as you guys said, they've been very like emotional and soft and tender around each other in front of other people before, and yet then when Mary wanted to comfort John when he found out he was possibly dying, Carlos has that moment where he like looks at them weird and then shrugs and walks off, and like, but if they've been doing this all the time, why was that suddenly a big thing to him? You know what I mean? You could see the writers at work in the whole episode for me. It paid off in the end, but I don't really know what the mission was. Like, they got to where they needed to go, but I just don't know, as far as the characters go, what the point of that was. Like I said, this very much felt like a standalone episode, a fun one, but I don't really know what it contributed to the story, because I don't feel like we're any further on, with the exception of the teaser at the end.
Okay, I think I'm emotionally prepared to talk about the exes now.
Let's do it.
When I saw Kyle pop up, do you guys understand how angry I was? I was like, not you. I thought we got rid of you. I know. And then Betty came back and she was driving me nuts. I'm like, girl, mind your business. Like, no one. I think at the end, it was successful as a viewer because just the sight of those two characters as like a potential foil to this couple, I was like at attention. I was like, I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to, take them down. And then, but I think that's successful. Like, I feel like that's maybe the emotion they want from the viewers. And then at the end, I was shook when they're at was it the diner or something? And the waitress, when she moves, great camera work, great like blocking. And then we see the dots on the back of Kyle's neck. And I'm like, okay, I'm in for whatever this is. I might not like it, but like, this is interesting.
It is. So I'm if we're right, do the dots on the back of his neck mean that he's been like taken over by an Akrita? Is that what that's suggesting? Yes.
Yeah, that's what it means.
Okay. Thought that. Yes. No, I remember I said a couple of months ago now, wow, time's passed so quickly, that the exes in sci-fi shows either end up villains or dead. And unfortunately, I think we can maybe see this going both ways here, because Kyle didn't they say the longer the Akrita infect someone, that the less of the person's left whenever they get kicked out. So unfortunately, I feel like Kyle's definitely long gone at this point. We don't know, but that was definitely an interesting plot twist, because it feels like, did the Akrita know to specifically target him because Mary had used him before? And then how's Betty going to get involved? Because she just wants to do the right thing and she's just worried about John. But like Reed says, take a step back, or 5. So I don't know. Yeah, but I enjoyed that. Don't get me wrong, as a viewer, I was like screaming at the TV. It was like, you two leave them alone. But on the other hand, I was like, okay, this is good. This is good. I don't know where this is going to go, because you've got one that really wants to help but keeps getting in the way, and you have one that's like inherently evil that wants to use that person. So does that mean Betty will end up dead? Does that mean Kyle will end up dead? How do they stop the two of them when one of them's good and one of them's bad? Again, so much to deal with and only just a few episodes left.
I do like the plot twist. I just wish that there was more emotional investment in who Kyle is supposedly to Mary, because when he popped up in the beginning, I was like, oh, is this going to be an opportunity for her to be weird with John, instead of just saying that she's with John to Kyle? She's just leaves it ambiguous, and that's kind of not what happens. Kyle's very aware that she is with John, and in fact, Mary even lets John make fun of her and Kyle's meet cute a little bit through the episode. So I was like, okay, well, that was useless. But then we come back to the diner, and you're like, oh, he's been affected by the Akrita. And I was like, I get why Betty would be an emotional pool for John. Why would Kyle be an emotional pool for Mary?
Like, they both come back, it seemed like, out of nowhere.
Yeah, they
out of the
do.
clear blue sky.
At
Pop back in.
least Betty makes a little bit more sense because she's an officer, a cop. So she keeps seeing Mary at crime scenes, and she's like, "What are you doing?" But it does shed some light on John as well, because apparently he used to get up to some trouble. They didn't elaborate, but apparently he was running around town. So I would like to know what we were doing. It sounds like fighting though, the way that Millie was talking, because she said like you went from like what, punching or something over here to punching something else, and I was like, oh, were you like brawling in the streets? And because it makes me wonder. I know he chose to go serve his country on his own. It wasn't like Carlos, who had to either go to jail or enlist. But I do want to know what John's rough past is, since Betty's scared that he's going to go down the wrong path again.
Well, we have 4 more episodes. Hopefully our questions are answered.
I hope so.
And we have a lot of them.
I know.